Hey, Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and today we're going to be talking about the Firaxis Feature Workshop build of Civilization 7 that I got to play recently. We're also going to be talking about a couple of other things. There'll be some B-roll gameplay in the background of Civ 7. It'll probably be the live build rather than the PTR because I no longer have access to the PTR. For those of you out of the loop, basically the Civilization developers ran a very early public test of some of the upcoming features for Civ 7. Now the short version is they're looking to remove legacy path, victory conditions, with more sandbox oriented victory conditions. They're adding a goal-based triumph system to replace how age transition dedications are earned. They're also adding in the test of time civilization system. And like, as I'm saying all these things, man, I just feel like Civ 7 is just so jargon heavy. There's just so much going on in these words that feel really unfamiliar and unintuitive to me. Anyway, they're also adding like a test of time civilization system, which will allow you to play any civ in any age, alongside a syncretism system, which provides extra support and gameplay for playing any civ in any age, because the way Civ 7 is set up, you know, if you're playing Greece in the modern age, you don't really have a whole lot of gameplay system, or gameplay bonuses that interact with the gameplay systems in modern age. So there's a syncretic system where you can basically, like, I don't know, steal another civilization. So I'm using the word steal, but it's not stealing. It's syncretism. But basically you can take a bonus from another civilization to use it in that age because your civ doesn't have a bonus, which is pretty cool. I actually really like that system. There's also a lot of changes to the user interface and the balance and gameplay systems. You know, there's less passive bonuses in the tech tree, which makes the tech tree feel a lot more open. Specialist yields have been reworked, which made them feel very rewarding if you got a high adjacency, but they also felt unrewarding in some instances, like on age transition. There's a few little foibles and pain points and things that I liked and didn't like. And if you want to know more about these changes and how they looked in gameplay, you can go check out the last 3 videos I've released. It's Tecumseh, Greece. We played Greece all the way through from the Antiquity Age to the Modern Age. If you want to see how that looks, you can check out the videos. I'll link them in the description. But this video is going to be how we're talking about how I feel about the changes and sort of where I'm at, like, vibes-wise on the future development of Civ 7. Now, vibes-wise on the Civ 7 development, I think the future is pretty bright for Civ 7, right? Like, I think the changes that are coming down the pipeline are going to be pretty good. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff the developers are working on. They're iterating on some really cool ideas, and they've got some neat stuff. So if you're a big fan of Civ 7, there's some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline. And like, in this patch, in this PTR, the big change for me was the test of time system, more jargon. Basically, the system that lets you play any civ in any age. This came as a big shock to me because I was not expecting this to matter at all. A lot of people have been really vocal about, you know, the fact that you can't play your civ through the entire game, like pretty much since the launch of the game. And you know, they've been vocal about how they don't like the forced civ switching mechanic. And I genuinely thought that this complaint was valid, but like pretty overblown. Like, I thought, you know, people are making a lot of noise about it, but it's actually not that big of a deal. And I didn't think it was a huge issue with the game, but the playtest has completely turned me around on this idea, to the point where I'm just ready to admit that I was wrong. Playing the same civilization from start to finish felt genuinely amazing in comparison to Civ Switching. Now, Civ Switching is still a ton of fun, like, you know, trying to build a cool combo, but man, I really enjoyed just sticking to playing Greece and occasionally stealing abilities from other civs using the syncretism system to augment my playstyle. It was mind-blowing to me just how much of a difference it made to the gameplay feel to just play one civ through each age. So if that's something that you really bounced off when you were playing Civ 7, you know, the people who called it Humankind 2, you know, keep an eye out for the next 3 to 6 months. That's kind of like the timeline I'm expecting for the full release of all the playtesting, you know, all the changes they're doing in the playtest. Now, that's a pretty optimistic assumption. I would lean more towards potentially the 6-month end of that. So we might see this by like pretty late into the year. we could be pleasantly surprised and see it earlier. That projection is based on seeing the progress they made between the first playtest and the second playtest. I'm not aware of any like developer statement on when these changes will be going live. There should be, for the people that want to try it out a little bit sooner, there should be a third round of testing where you should be able to get into the Firaxis feature workshop if you're interested. I know a lot of people who are in it will be giving out keys. Depending on when it happens, I'm going on my honeymoon in April, so if it happens in April, I'm not going to be here. So I won't get to try that one out, which I kind of expect it to happen in April. Who knows? But if you're around and if you can get in and if you can talk to content creators, find them streaming it when it comes around, keep an eye on news channels, you might be able to get in there and play it yourself. Some of the other changes were fine. Like there was a new victory system that felt a little bit better in some respects, but it also felt worse in kind of other ways. The new systems mostly felt like a side grade. The Triumph system was initially interesting to me when I first started playing around with it, getting a variety of goals to pursue, with major triumphs being more difficult, was kind of interesting, and minor triumphs being a little bit easier, but providing like instant bonuses. There was kind of that interesting interplay of like choosing what goals you wanted to go for. But I just kind of felt like a guy on a treadmill with a carrot on a stick. It just felt like a side grade. That there was like this. It was cool. I don't think it's the thing that's going to make Civ 7 better, because a lot of the changes and new systems, and understandably so, they kind of felt slapped on, right? Because these are like minimum viable products. These are like, this is a playtest, right? This is, think of it like early access or a beta or an alpha. Things are unfinished, and they haven't been like really fully integrated into the gameplay yet. And it just felt a little tacky, slappy on, it didn't feel, yeah, like, and of course they're going to iterate on it, but, realizing that these kind of rough implementations and unpolished nature of this, it kind of made me really see that complaint that people have had about Civ 7, that I was kind of brushing it off, and I was like, yeah, it's like a little, but I kind of see now in a lot of areas of the game how like systems feel unpolished and unfinished, and like they're MVPs, minimal viable products or implementations, and I'm starting to see that complaint that people have, that I was just kind of blind to it. It wasn't at the forefront of how I was experiencing the game. But playing the PTR made me realize that like the parallel between the Triumph system and like even just the way that traders are implemented, like traders are like the biggest culprit, like in the Antiquity Age. Why do I need to tell the trader to walk to a city and then start the trade route? Why can't he just like go there and start the trade route? Why do I need to go into the diplomacy screen and click a button to increase? Why can't I do that all through an integrated seamless action? It's just, man, it's too crunchy in a bad way. It's rocky. The gameplay iterations, it all just feels very, very first iteration, And and I start to, it makes me wonder, like, Marvel Midnight Suns had a pretty rocky, it had a really rocky launch, and support for it was basically immediately cut. And I'm wondering if that caused like a massive crunch on Civ 7 that kind of led to this like these deeper explorations and iteration on these systems kind of being put on the back burner in favor of getting the game out the door. And I don't have like insider knowledge. This is speculation, but I wonder if that's true. And yeah, I don't have like deeper insider knowledge there. And if I did, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. This is pure just outsider looking in speculation. I mean, I don't think Firaxis is known for crunch, but it just makes me feel most of all kind of bad, because maybe they didn't get the time they needed to work on it because of that. I don't know, man. Anyway, look, I spent a lot of time with Civ 7 during the playtest, and I have to say, the gameplay changes, like the developers are like on the ball. They are making really cool changes and doing really awesome stuff, and they're really, really great. Like the new resource screen is so much better. You can easily sort through and you can search mementos, and there's like nested tooltips, and there's system improvements and gameplay improvements, and UI is communication and a ton of small tweaks and little improvements here and there, and they've rounded out a ton of issues with the gameplay, and all feels a lot better. But spending this much time, like, intimately with this game, with a critical eye, like, on a really deep level, which I haven't done in like a year since launch, I started to see all these kind of like problems that were lurking beneath the surface that are like the foundational systems and assumptions baked into the game. It just really hammered home to me how many little things about it I just really don't vibe with. It kind of revealed and reiterated to me that some of the core fundamentals of this game are orienting the developers in a direction that isn't designed for me as a player. And I'm worried that no amount of iteration or feedback upon the systems that alienate me will bring me back. Because, you know, you're kind of building the palace on bad foundations, you know what I mean? And that makes me really sad, because I want to like Civ 7. I was so excited for the game. And every time a patch comes out, I'm like super excited to see what they've done to improve the game, and I'm excited to play it and try it out. But the more I go through that process, and the more I find myself reading the patch notes, and the more I find myself a little bit disappointed that builders are still gone. I can't manually build roads. You can't settle on resources. The map always just feels choked. You can't even tell like whether your cities are connected, or build the roads and the roads just magically appear, but you don't know if they're connected. And it's like you've also got that like oppressive and unfun settlement limit mechanic. That never, I don't think it's ever going away. And, you know, city border growth is still done through like a Civ 4 culture bomb style, instead of the beautiful organic border growths that we got in like Civ 5 and Civ 6 and Beyond Earth. You have these like culture acquiring tiles thing, and this is gone now. And you can't switch tiles between cities, or choose what improvements goes where, or what tiles you work. And more it just feels like the developers designed away all the aspects of the gameplay that I fell in love with when they designed Civ 7. It feels like the things that made Civ games to me have been designed away. And the more time I spend playing Civilization 7, the more I feel like I'm kind of like a little bit emotionally giving up on the game. And I can kind of see the through thread of the mental health problems I was having last year, with like the psychic damage of both dealing with that and the community and the personal issues I was having. You know, it's kind of crazy. But when you're this invested in a system, in a series, in a developer, in a game, they can have a real impact on you. And the reality of I'm not gonna get what I want and expected from a Civilization experience from playing Civ 7 is kind of starting to set in with me. And I'm beginning to kind of realize it might not be delivered through the patches either. And the more I play Civ 7, and the more I play Civ 7, the more I think the sort of sweeping, huge changes, because I don't think they stuck to the rule of thirds with this one. I think it should have been contained to a more experimental title, kind of like Beyond Earth, right? Beyond Earth was like Civ 5.5. It was, and you know what? Also, Beyond Earth is actually a cracking game, and you should all go buy it and play it right now with the expansions, because it is so damn good. But yeah, I think just the sweeping changes they made in Civ 7 should have been that should have been like a Civ 5 or a Civ 6.6. It shouldn't have been a whole huge new Civ game. I think they were way too ambitious. Now, I know a lot of people like Civ 7, and I don't think it's a bad game. It's just not the game for me, man. I like builders, I like workers, I like micromanaging tiles and citizens. I find constructing an empire tile by tile to be really satisfying, and Civ 7 just doesn't have any of that. The game doesn't feel satisfying for me to play. I will keep playing it when new content and updates come out, and I'll keep coming back to it, and I'll keep giving the developers feedback, even if I don't think they should necessarily listen to me, because I think they should build the game for the people who already love it. But I hope, because you know, and the reason I say that is because Civ 5 players hated Civ 6 when it came out, and Civ 4 players hated Civ 5 when it came out. But if they had listened to the people who hated it, we wouldn't have those incredible games now. And that's why I'm saying, like, and I'm not saying I hate Civ 7, but I think they should listen to the people who love it and make Civ 7 the best game for the people that like it. But more so, I'm going to keep playing it and criticizing it and giving feedback, because maybe whatever comes afterwards, you know, my feedback can give a bit of a voice to the people who love the classic gameplay systems and elements and mechanics that made Civ feel like a Civ game. And there's kind of a worry here, in that I worry, this is sort of a more general and wider worry, that game studios in general are kind of getting themselves into trouble with these huge development teams that create unrealistic goals and expectations. Like, it feels like Civ 7 is trying to please everyone, but is pleasing basically no one with a huge budget. I mean, think about Firaxis. They've got like 200 employees, which means they could have a financial burn rate of between like $7 million per year and $20 million per year on just payroll, on just paying people. That's just paying people to show up. You're burning between $7 and $20 million a year. That's insane. Like, if you assume like a 5-year development time for a video game, which is like pretty, I would say, standard, and you're assuming the whole studio. Now, I know, like, look, we're making a very, I know it's a very simplified example here, but like, you're talking like between 35 million and $100 million, right? And the 35 million is assuming that every employee is a college graduate making like an entry-level salary of like 35 to 40K. You know what I mean? Like, it's no wonder the base game for Civ 7 costs like $70 and $120 for like the souped up Settler edition. You know, the sort of scale that they're working on just payroll for these huge gameplay titles doesn't leave room for errors. And my point here is that I'm a little bit worried about the future of Civ 7. I don't think they'll drop support for the game before the 2nd anniversary. Like, I think the earliest we could see development on the game go dark would be like February 2027. They might do it to 3 years. But, like, remember that burn rate. If they have those 200 employees working on that game, they need to justify that burn rate. They need to be getting sales and reviews. And I could see the finance people, like, after the second year, it might get harder and harder to justify continuing to work on the game. Because, again, if you're not getting the sales, you're still burning a few $1 million per year. Like, just to cover... I think to cover a year of development, you need like 200,000 sales just to cover 1 year of development. So did the work they did in the last year get them an extra 200,000 sales? I don't know, man. It's tough. And that's 200,000 sales without discounts, with the 30% Steam cut. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just payroll. That's just payroll. It's crazy. Anyway, sort of like wrapping this up, I'm still vibing on Civ 6. And there's a part of me that's thinking, right? Like, if I was in the boardroom, I'd be like, listen, guys, we got these amazing. We got Civ 4, Civ 5, Civ 6, you got Beyond Earth. What if we cracked out a few small DLCs for these games? You know, Age of Empires 2 is still being supported after God knows how long. Maybe Civ 5 players deserve a DLC, an expansion or something. You know, just clean up a few systems, make things a little nicer. Add a bunch of civs, just make a new civ, and maybe update the netcode, make the game more stable, get rid of some bugs. You know, maybe these are things that I might throw out there if I was in those boardrooms. And I think part of it is I'm kind of just mentally starting to check out of Civ 7, which I feel terrible for, because the amount of passion and hard work that's going into the game just isn't landing with me yet. It's so sad, dude. Like, you know? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the ramble. I love you all very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.